Good afternoon, folks. Thank you for joining me here today on the AirWatch webinar. If you can't already see the slide, you do me a big favor and just introduce yourself in the chat just so we have a sort of record of attendance. I'm just going to wait a few more minutes, maybe like one or two, just to see if more people come in, and then we'll begin. Oh, and of course, if you can't hear me very well or something's wrong with the video, just feel free to let me know in the chat so we can see what's going on with that. Good afternoon, Andrew, Judith, and Josie. Oh, and Christopher. Sorry. All right, well, I'm not going to waste any more time. It is quite a lot to soak in, so let's begin right away. Again, thank you guys for joining me this morning / soon to be afternoon for the AirWatch webinar. We're just going to go over our new enterprise mobility management product called AirWatch that'll help us better manage our iPads and mobile devices in our schools. Oh, sorry, I should say with me to my left I have my colleague Felipe, who will be fielding the chat room for any questions. So if you guys have like a quick question and you want it addressed, he'll be actually going over the chat. I can see the chat too, but he might be able to answer sort of quick questions in the chat. Whereas if he sees something that maybe has to speak more to, what will happen is he'll take that question away, and I'll try to answer it at the end of the webinar, just so that you guys can get back to class if you're short on time. And before we begin, just to let you know, this webinar is being recorded and will be available at the end of the webinar using the same YouTube link that you're actually looking at right now. So once this is done, it goes right up on our channel. You can see all of our previous ones. Obviously, the latest is usually the greatest because there's more information or new stuff that comes out. But this video will be available at the end of this. And also, one thing to note, there is about a 10-second delay between the time I say something from my voice and the moment that you guys actually hear it. So if you ask a question and I may not, or it gives the appearance that I may not be answering it, or maybe it's being neglected, it's just because of that. Of course, feel free to ask questions in the chat, and questions that require more detailed response, I'm going to try to park those for the end of the webinar, just because I want to get the content, the gist of the content through first, and anything that may require a more elaborate explanation, then I can use that time at the end of the video. And of course, if you can't even stick around for that question at the end, at least you can go back and use the same YouTube link that you have to see my response, because I will take the time to go into detail as to whatever question you may have. Also, so just before we begin, some settings with YouTube, just in the bottom right-hand corner, if you hover your mouse over the video, you'll see like a little bar come up. The bottom right-hand corner, there is a gear icon. You can adjust the quality settings to something maybe a higher quality, 1080p, 720p. Those are the HD qualities. Those two will give you the best picture. However, it may be slow depending on the network speed, but those are the ones that I'd recommend adjusting to. Also, there is next to the volume button a live button that will be either gray or red. If it's gray, it means it's kind of fallen out of sync. It's not the quote-unquote latest of my voice, and what you want to do is you want to click that so that that button goes red, and then that way you'll know that you're on the livest possible, we'll say. And just some prerequisites, we're hoping that by now you guys all have AirWatch access. I did have a chance to actually go through and identify about 3 or so users that do not have AirWatch access. So we're already trying to work on getting that taken care of before the webinar, but I'm not sure as to whether that will be done on time. And I don't see them in the chat either, so that's not a big deal. We're also hoping that you have at least one device enrolled in AirWatch at this point. If you have some confusions or questions regarding the AirWatch enrollment process, I can take the time and show you at the end of the video. I do have an iPad with me here that I can actually demonstrate the enrollment process. So I have a little handy webcam here, and we can go over how the actual enrollment process works when you're going through the initial setup. But I'm going to skip past that during the webinar unless people have a demand for that. And of course, there are links in the video description that link you to our ServiceIT MDM page, which is sort of everything encompassing of AirWatch. So you can check those out as well. And oh, there we go. So AirWatch, what is it? Well, AirWatch is a mobile device management product, or enterprise mobility management system. The two terms are interchangeable. Don't worry too much about which one to use. Feel free to use EMM or MDM. We'll totally understand. But basically it refers to the central hub or brain that controls all our mobile devices across the board. So similarly, how we have all our computers hooked up to the network and we can kind of, you know, control how the computers look. This is sort of the mobile device equivalent. And the product we're using is AirWatch. So it's a centralized portal for configuring and managing our mobile devices. We've offloaded some of the tasks onto you guys so that you guys can control your own iPads as well to have it the way that you guys would like it in terms of what kind of apps are on there. So that's what this whole webinar intends to cover. So what are the benefits of using AirWatch? The benefits include that there's an automatic TDSB wireless network access. So that would be the first one. So prior to AirWatch, you would have to join either, I think at the time it was called TDSB Staff, but now we have TDSB Wi-Fi. But the idea is that those wireless networks are, you have to type in your employee number and password, and you know, that's kind of very cumbersome if you have a lot of iPads and you don't want to put in your employee number and password on an iPad. So with all the iPads that are in AirWatch, they will join WLAN TDSB 01, no password required, and they should maintain that connection for the lifespan until, oh, my firewall. Let me just get rid of that. Sorry about that. Easy app installation for multiple iPads. So rather than picking up each individual iPad, going into the App Store and searching up an app and finding it, downloading it, typing in your Apple ID, you won't have to do that anymore. We're going to push them through with AirWatch. So the central AirWatch hub will actually push the apps over to the device wirelessly. There's going to be a consistent look and feel between the iPads. All the TDSB iPads now have basically a blue background with a let me see if I can show you that. Blue background with the TDSB logo on the lock screen. I used to have software that would actually display the iPad better on the screen, but that software has been a little bit of a pain recently. So I'm just going to use the document camera. It seems to do a good job. But they all have the same look and feel. You can see it's got the TDSB logo and a blue background. So that look and feel is a good indicator of whether or not the iPad is an AirWatch. Also, there is built-in security policies preventing students from adding or removing apps, applying passcodes, and locking the device. So prior to AirWatch, what would happen is the iPads were totally unrestricted. And basically, a student could go into settings and put a passcode on the device, not tell the teacher what passcode it is that they set on that device, and effectively what would have to happen is we'd have to wipe that device because that's, you know, built-in security. So we've taken that ability out. And also the ability to add apps, so you can't go into the App Store, find an app, and download it. That's restricted for the AirWatch users or AirWatch administrators. And also a few other settings are kind of locked down. We can go through that as we go along. And the last benefit I'd say is that you get a school-level inventory of your iPads. So you can see all the iPads that you have across your school, their serial numbers, you know, battery life even, the generation or model of the iPad. So that's a cool, neat little feature of AirWatch. So who can log in? Principals by default have access to AirWatch. Those ones, principals by default have access to AirWatch, and AirWatch administrators. And the AirWatch administrators are you guys. You have been added in to AirWatch using LAS. So your principal has gone into LAS and added you into a special group. It's like the 4-digit trillium number of your school -EMM, and by doing so, you now have access to log into AirWatch. So your principal will select the users at the school that can manage AirWatch. We add them in through LAS, and then boom, you're able to log in. It could take 12 to 24 hours between the time that you're added in through LAS and for you to actually have access to AirWatch. There's a nightly synchronization process that takes place. So if you were added in and you still don't have access, yeah, maybe just wait 12 to 24 hours. But I'm hoping by now you guys all have access so you can follow along with the webinar. So this demo is going to cover the iPad new look and feel. We're going to go over navigating the AirWatch console. We're going to show you how to organize your iPads into different smart groups, and then from there you can add and remove apps and web clips. Web clips being like an internet shortcut to your iPads. So we group our iPads, then we will apply apps to the groups and apply web clips to the groups. You'll see that, and it'll all make sense hopefully in the next few moments. One thing I want to quickly touch on before we proceed is, again, identifying the new iPads, or rather what it is that they look like. So a good indicator of an iPad that is in AirWatch is the presence of the Agent app and the Catalog app. So if you see an iPad that has a blue background and that blue shield that says Agent and a little icon that says Catalog, that's a good indicator that that iPad is in AirWatch. I can see that somebody also mentioned in the chat room that they have an ocean background for their iPad. That ocean background is actually the default iPad background. So what may have happened is that the iPad was either manually enrolled, which I can go into detail at the end of the webinar. I don't want to spend too much time on it, or that the iPad was not enrolled. Now, if you do see that it has that ocean background and also that it has the Agent app on it, that's usually a good indication that the iPad was manually enrolled, which I can explain at the end of the webinar, but that should be a very unique case, because generally speaking, you only have to manually enroll an iPad into AirWatch if it was donated to the school, or maybe you guys got it through a grant, or maybe you purchased it with the Petty Cash card at the Apple Store. Basically, any sort of way around our traditional process of ordering iPads is when we would use the manual enrollment. So if you have a bunch that have that background, I'd be interested to see more about that. But real quick, I just want to show you the iPad that I have here and just go over that look and feel that I was talking about. So I'm just waiting for the white balance to show up. So you can see that it has that TDSB background, and the iPad will have that Agent app right here. Let me see if I can bring that up there. So that blue shield is the Agent app, and that is sort of like the brains app of the iPad. And then there's also this catalog here. So the catalog is used for apps that are going to be pushed on demand, which I'll go into later. So as you can see, this is an iPad that's an AirWatch, easily identifiable. It's got a blue background. It's got the Agent app and the Catalog app. Also, when you go to the lock screen of the device and fire it up, you can see that it's got the TDSB logo. So that's usually a good indication that that iPad is in AirWatch. One thing I want to mention about this is that one thing you'll also notice is that there is no App Store on this device. And that goes back to what I mentioned earlier, where the iPads are sort of locked down in that, you know, a student, if I had this iPad in my hand, I wouldn't be able to go to the App Store, find an app that I want to use, and download it without anyone's permission. So that App Store is removed. There's also some settings that are also removed. So on the left-hand side, before you would see the ability to add a passcode. That is no longer the case when it's locked down. You shouldn't be able to sign in with an let's see if I can bring that up. There we go. So the iTunes, there we go. Okay. So you can't sign in with an Apple ID, which causes some problems in itself, and also you can't sign in with an iCloud. Tap. Can't even tap that. Yeah, so it's grayed out. That's why I can't tap that. The wireless will automatically be on WLAN TDSB 01, not the other wirelesses that are here. So WLAN TDSB 01 doesn't require passwords. So this is a true AirWatch iPad. One important thing I actually want to go over, because if at any moment you're feeling so frustrated with AirWatch that you want to do something or circumvent the AirWatch process, as locked down as this iPad is, you can always actually unlock everything. And I'll show you how to do that. So say, for example, you submitted an app request form and the AirWatch administrator at your school is taking too long to push it to the iPad and you want it now. If I want to make that App Store reappear, or say I want to go in here and adjust some settings that aren't available at this moment, what I can do is I can actually launch the Agent app, so this blue shield guy right here, and then I can sign in with my employee number and password. So what's going to happen is going to show loading. It's going to ask me for a username and password. Any TDSB employee at this moment can type in their employee number and password, and what will happen is it'll completely unlock all the features of the iPad. I'm just going to pull this away so I can actually type in my employee number and password and not have that revealed on the webinar. And of course, I have a 20-character password. Okay. So I have my employee number and password in there, and what's going to happen? There we go. And once I click login, it's going to go through a little loading wheel. Of course, I typed in my password wrong. Bear with me 1 second. Maybe I should get Felipe to type in his password. How many characters is your password? 12. 12? It's high security. That's right. We are high security. All those hackers want our accounts. Okay. Hopefully I typed it in right. There we go. Tap login. So I punched in my employee number and password. Again, any TDSB staff member can put in their employee number and password. So you don't have to be an AirWatch administrator to type in your employee number and password there. But when you do type in your employee number and password there, what will happen is it'll load, and then eventually you'll see a screen that'll give you the option to log out and just kind of tell you some details about the device. But once we actually get past this loading wheel, this is what we're going to see. And now we know that the iPad is unlocked. So let me show you what I mean by unlocked. If I tap the home button here and I go back to the screen, look at that. My App Store is now available. So I've basically circumvented all restrictions on the iPad. Everything should now be unlocked. So any restriction that is on this iPad is now gone. It's now in a state where I can do whatever it is that I want. So that passcode feature is now available if you did want to put a passcode on the device. Now I can change the wallpaper of the device. You can change the Wi-Fi. I mean, you could always change the Wi-Fi, but you can sign in with an Apple ID. But that's a very important thing that I'd like to stress, because sometimes a lot of times people ask, like, how do I do this or how do I do that, and AirWatch is causing a hindrance. If at any moment something is frustrating you and you wish to circumvent AirWatch, you could always do that. Again, you sign into the agent app there, type in your employee number and password, and once you've logged in, everything will become unrestricted. Now, I can always also sign out. So before I hand this back to a student, I don't want to leave it like this, because then now they can, do whatever they want. So what I do is I go back into the agent app and I tap the logout button, hit log out. Once I see that login screen again, what I also should be able to do is press the home button and see that App Store has disappeared and all that stuff. Let's see here. So yeah, now that I've signed out, App Store is still there, but give it a few moments and it's actually going to disappear. It should pop right from the screen. There it goes. And yeah, so now it's back in that lockdown state. So we'll say it's back in quote-unquote student mode, and I should be able to hand that back to a student without any repercussions. So that was just one thing I wanted to go over real quick so that you guys could understand that. That's very important if you're ever frustrated. So now we're going to actually talk about logging into the web console. So that was the iPad side of things. We're going to go over to the web console, and this is where you guys will be managing all your iPads. You can log in from anywhere on the web. There's no browser limitation, so it doesn't matter. You don't need to use Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, Firefox. It doesn't matter. Any browser should work with AirWatch. You can log in from anywhere on the web, not just within the TDSB. It's a web-based application on the Internet. There is an important detail of the username format. I don't know if you can see it here on the slide, but let's say your employee number is 1234556. You would actually type in TDSB / and then your employee number. So not just your employee number and password, but TDSB / and then your employee number. And on the first moment that you log in, if it is the first time you're logging in, it will ask you to create a 4-digit PIN code. Christopher, is there a 4-digit? Is there an automatic logout for the agent? I believe there is. I haven't actually tested it though. I think if you, there is. There was a ticket for it. They told us. Yeah. Okay, I'll let Felipe look that up. I'm pretty sure there's a lockout or an automatic logout, because that'd be terrible if there was no timeout. But just be cognizant of logging out anyways. That's a quick note. So yeah, when you first log into the AirWatch web console, it'll ask you to create a 4-digit PIN, and I'll kind of talk about why it is that we need that. And the link for AirWatch is right here. It's kind of a mouthful to remember, but it's https://n239 schoolful. Yeah, I'm going to show that. So the link is right here. I'm going to show you that on your desktop of any TDSB computer. Let me just minimize that. There should be a link to AirWatch in your school folder. So I'm obviously not part of a school, so I don't really have a school folder, but my folder here is called LAS Test School, just to sort of mimic what it is that you guys have. So when you guys go into your school folder on the desktop, it should look very similar to this. So you got your drop-off folder, student share, teacher share, yearbook, all that good stuff. And what you'll see in there is actually a link to AirWatch. So we put that in all the school shared folders. So if you want to get to AirWatch, go to your desktop, find that school shared folder, double-click the AirWatch link. So I'll do that now, and of course it automatically filled in my information. I'm just going to take that out. So this is the AirWatch web console login. Oops, that's not what I wanted. And of course we have to type in our username and password, and as I mentioned and stressed, that the username is not just our employee number and password. In this case, you actually want to type in TDSB, not like that, TDSB /16, and then your employee number. So the TDSB is not case sensitive. You can type it in TDSB lowercase. You can type it in, TDSB. It doesn't matter as long as you have TDSB /. And just to be clear, the / is the one directly above the enter key, not the one to the left of the shift key. So TDSB / your employee number, and then you're going to type in your current network password. So the same one you used to log into the computer, same one you used to check your emails at home. Once that's all in there, should be able to log in. Let's not save that. And you probably won't see this screen first if this is your first time logging in. What you may see actually is the terms of agreement. If you want to lullaby yourself to bed, please be my guest and go through and read it. Otherwise, just click accept, and then after the fact, you'll be prompted to create a 4-digit PIN code. This 4-digit PIN code, don't worry too much about remembering it. You can reset it at any time that you want. The 4-digit PIN code, the only instance I've seen it used is that when you go to wipe a device through AirWatch, it makes you type in this 4-digit PIN code just to make sure you don't do it accidentally. So when you type in, let's say I wanted to wipe a device using AirWatch, there's a little drop-down feature to wipe the device. It'll just say, are you sure? And then make you type in your 4-digit PIN code. So don't worry too much about it, but go ahead and create a little 4-digit PIN code that you can remember. 1, 2, 3, 4. It doesn't really matter. It's not really much of a security thing more than anything. And then what you'll see is the dashboard. So let me switch back over to AirWatch here. Of course, on another tab. Oops. So, geez. Okay, here we go. So once you've got your 4-digit PIN code all created, this should be the main screen that you see. This is the dashboard. It's just sort of a higher level overview of your environment. It tells you how many devices you have in AirWatch. In this case, I have 3 iPads enrolled in AirWatch, and just some general statistics here of your devices. What platform are they? Are they iPads? And then there would be another section here for Android if you guys have some Android devices. We're not going to cover Android devices because we're still kind of working out the kinks of how Android will interact with AirWatch. But for now, we're going to focus primarily on iPads. But you would be able to see more of a breakdown of your environment from here. All these graphs are interactive, so I can actually click it, and it'll take me to the device it's referring to. So for example, if this one shows that there's 2 devices seen in the last 8 hours, I can click that. It'll take me over to and show me what those 2 devices it's referring to into list view. I'm going to go back here. And speaking of which, of list view, if we want to see a list of our devices, we're going to hover our mouse over here on the left-hand side for devices. And that's the dashboard. This is where we're at now. You can tell because it's highlighted in blue. We're going to toggle down to list view. And this should show us a list of all our devices. Now, I have a filter on here because I clicked that graph on the previous screen. So I'm just going to toggle that out. So there's no filter. So right now I have 3 devices. I have 3 iPads in my environment. I'm just going to hide the filters there so we don't have to see that. These are the 3 iPads that I have showing up in my little test environment here. I've already named 2 of them, and I have one that's set to the default name of just iPad. I'll explain the importance of why you want to rename your iPads in just a little bit, but the list view idea here is that you can just see a list of all your iPads, the little details surrounding them, like, what version is it, 10.3.3, what kind of iPad is it, iPad 4th generation, and just some extra details here. You can also do different operations on the iPads. So say, for example, these ones were running out of date, or rather they weren't on the latest version of iOS. I could, check off 2 of these iPads, and I could force them to do an iOS update by clicking more actions. You can play around with these features. I don't want to spend too much time on them, but the idea is that you can control things from this web console and select multiple iPads and control them from here. You can enable lost mode, which basically locks down the device and prevents anyone from using it until you disable it. It's a good feature if you actually lose your iPad. You can put like your phone number in there. I can show that later if there's any interest in that. You can shut down the device, reboot it, lock meaning that it'll just send it back to the lock screen. So that's really list view, and then there's one more view that's kind of not shown here, but when I actually click one of the iPads, we can go into details view. So this is the iPad that I've been showing you earlier. It's the one that's not named, so I'm going to tap that. And what it's going to do is going to take me to details view. So now I see more information, but it's just regarding the one specific device. So previously I was looking at a list. Now I'm looking at one individual iPad, and there's a whole bunch of other features that open up here. such as I can see, you know, the serial number of the iPad. If I scroll down here, it shows me the serial numbers right here. You got the storage capacity, how much space is left on that iPad. Maybe I put too many apps on it and it's filling up. Whether there's an available OS update or operating system update available, battery level, etc., etc. One thing you may find yourself looking at is the Apps tab. The Apps tab will show you that out of all the apps that I have pushed over to this device, which ones have made it, and that's indicated by a green check mark. You can see other statuses, like for example, this Gmail one has a red X next to it. That one is showing a red X because I had forcefully uninstalled it myself. So if you want to see like, hey, why doesn't this iPad have the app that I deployed it, you can kind of see whether it has it or not by looking at the Apps tab in these green check marks here. There's some more actions up here in the top right hand corner. There's the device wipe. This is what I was referring to when I said that it'll ask you for that 4-digit PIN code. So if you click more actions up here in the top right hand corner, you'll see that there's some extra stuff that you can do here. You probably won't spend too much time up here, but let's say for example I signed into the AirWatch agent app and I forgot to sign out, and then I gave it back to a student, and then the student went and put a passcode on it. You could actually clear that passcode from here. If in the event that happened, you could just go to more actions and clear it, and then it'll make the passcode go away. Same thing with the device wipe. If I want to just start vanilla, I can do the device wipe from here, and then it'll ask me for my 4-digit PIN code that I created earlier. I'm just going to type it in wrong so that you can see. But that's the idea of the 4-digit PIN code. So a lot of little extra features here. Play around with it. Again, you won't be spending too much time here. I think the important thing to go over is how we're going to deploy apps to our iPads, and how we're going to do that. And first and foremost, one of the things I recommend is renaming your iPads. And the reason for that is if you want to sort of have a very good management of your iPads, let's say the needs of your grade 1 students apps and then your grade 5 students apps may not be the same, I would recommend that you rename the iPads. Now, this can be a little bit cumbersome from here in the AirWatch web console because, you know, how do I know that this iPad here is indeed the one that I have next to me, you know, over on my right here? You know, how do I know that this one is that iPad, right? So one way we can find out is by searching up the serial number. So if I go to my iPad here, I can go into settings and then general and then about up here at the top. And this will show me all the details regarding the iPad. And about halfway down there is the serial number right here. And then what I could do is I could go back over to my AirWatch environment and actually search up that serial number. So DMQK5G FRF 183. So that's the serial number that I got from the iPad, and I'm going to search it in the top right-hand corner here. And what that'll do is it'll filter down my list. Okay, so that's the iPad that I have to the left of me. That's a little bit cumbersome, but that is one way of doing it. Is that now that I have this iPad filtered, I can now rename it. So now that I know that that iPad is the one that I have to the left of me, I can actually click this pencil icon here, and this will give me the opportunity to rename the iPad. So the reason we're renaming them is so that when later we go to group them, they don't all just look like iPad, 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 because then I won't be able to say which one's which, right? So you want to probably try to match the iPad name to like your school's inventory system. So for example, let's say this one is a grade 2 iPad. Actually, let me just go back. I want to see what naming convention I've been using so far. Of course. I think I had it as... Okay, so I have grade 1 and then iPad number. So let's say I know that this one is it now, so I'm just going to click the pencil here. So let's say this one's a grade 5 iPad. I could call it grade 5 and then dash iPad. And let's pretend that there's a sticker on the back of this iPad and it's iPad number 9. So this will help you not only for your inventory purposes of having your iPads all accounted for and being able to see them in AirWatch, but also when I want to deploy apps, rather than having a set of apps that I deploy all apps to all my iPads, which you can do if you want to have every single app that you'd like on every single iPad that you own. That'll make your life a lot easier in terms of managing it, as you'll see in a bit. But if you want that sort of granular control, maybe you want grade 5 iPads to have their own apps and not on the same grade 1 iPads, then this is what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to rename those iPads and do it in a way that makes sense to you. And I can also, from here, set the friendly name as a device name. So what it'll do is it'll push this name over to the device. I'm going to click Save, and then now you can see it's showing grade 5 iPad 9. And if I go over to my iPad, which should happen in due time, is eventually it'll make that its way over to the iPad. So if I go back up to the top, you can see the name of the device actually reflects that of which I just set. So you can see it shows grade 5 iPad number 9. Now, I was going to show that you can actually do this the other way around, where, because I've seen it happen before, and I've been unable to get it to go, but I promise you it works. Instead of going through the web console and renaming it, what you can actually do is you can pick up your iPads. Say, for example, you have a label on the back. We call ours, CSD iPad number 3. If I wanted to rename the iPad from the iPad side, I can actually go into Settings and then General over there on the left-hand side, and then About at the top. And if I rename this iPad to, let's say, iPad number 8, done. So now I've changed the name on this side. What's supposed to happen is that name should trickle all the way to AirWatch, and then it should reflect in the web console. I've seen many schools do it. I've seen it happen right before my very eyes, but for some reason, whenever I do it on a webinar, it never happens. So I'm reluctant to show you, but I promise you that if you give it a shot, maybe it'll work for you. I apologize for that not being the most straightforward answer, but that is one thing you can try, is rename it on the device side, and then maybe, because that'll make your life a little bit easier. If you rename it on the device, it should eventually make its way over to AirWatch, but I don't know. We'll come back and I'll see maybe if that changes eventually, because right now it's still showing number 9. So I'm hoping that'll change to number 8 by the end of the webinar, but no promises. Okay, so that's renaming the iPad. So now this looks good. I have my 3 iPads. Your school may have probably 100 more than I do, but I have them all named, and they all look kind of congruent in that they have their grade that the iPad applies to, and then maybe a number that appears on the back of the iPad. So now that they're renamed, we can now group them together. And how we do that is we go over to Groups and Settings on the left-hand side here, and then we're going to click Groups. And then we're going to go over to Assignment Groups. And what this will do, these are all the different, what AirWatch calls smart groups. Now, I've already created a bunch of groups here, so grade 1 all the way to grade 6 iPads. What we can do is we're basically going to be creating a group here that we can then drop those iPads in. Because how this whole AirWatch thing works is we don't apply an app to, like, individual iPads. We don't. What we do is we group our iPads, and then apply apps to the group. So if that iPad is inside of a group, any app that I apply to the group, it will get. So let me show you as an example. I'm going to add Smart Group up here, so I'm going to create a new one. And first thing I do when I get on this screen, and we get this a lot, is we're going to toggle over from Select Criteria at the top over to Select Devices or Users. And just a brief reason as to why we don't leave it on here is that Select Criteria works based off of parameters on the iPad. So for example, I can create a group that says all iPads or, all Apple iOS devices that are, greater than version 10 point, we'll say, let's shoot low. So all iPads that are version greater than 8.0. That's not really good for us. I mean, we don't really base our criteria on what the iPad model is. You may find that useful for you, but I would just recommend that we stay away from Select Criteria, and we're going to toggle over to Select Devices or Users. When we do so, it always asks us, hey, you're going to lose all your information that you just created, which is fine because I don't want to keep the group that way. So you just click OK, and now we can start actually building our group. So I'm going to say hypothetically that this iPad that I've named the grade 5 iPad, I'm going to say now it's part of the library. So I'm going to call this group Library iPads. Over here in the top right-hand corner, I create the name. And yeah, an iPad can be a member of multiple groups. So I can have my grade 5 iPad. I'll show you actually in just a second. I'll have it in the library and in the grade 5 group. So I'm going to create this library iPads group, and I'm going to now add the device to the group. And how I do that is when I put my cursor in here, it's going to give us a drop down of all our iPads. I only have 3 in here. You probably have a lot more. But for me, these are the only 3 that I see. And this is a throwback. This is why we renamed our iPads. If we had came in here without renaming our iPads, and let's say they were all just named iPad, I wouldn't be able to tell which one's which, right? So I wouldn't be able to add it to this group and therefore make appropriate apps be applied to that group because I didn't have a rename. But thankfully I did. So I'm going to put the grade 5 iPad number 9, the one that I have to the left of me, into this group. Select it, click add, and it moves over to the right hand side. Once it's on the right hand side, I know it's part of my group. I can actually add multiple, so I just keep clicking here. Oh, let's say I want number 4. Or sorry, that's the one I just did. Hold on a sec. That one. And I click add. So, oops, that's right click. So I can add multiple in here. And let's say I'm just going to leave it as the one. So, but I just wanted to give you the idea that you can add as many as you want in here, right? All your iPads can go in here if you wanted. But I'm just going to leave it as grade 5 iPad 5. And how I'm going to do is I'm going to take these guys out, 1 and 3, by just unchecking this here. And here we go. So I have the 1 iPad in my library iPads group. And I click save. Now my library iPad group exists. So now I can start working with that. And just some quick info here on the groups. If I scroll over to the right here, it'll actually show me how many devices are in that group, in this column over here. And the assignments are like how many different rules I've applied to them. So, one other group here is the iPads All group that I want to explain. Every single school should have an iPads All group. This group applies to all iPads. So by default, every single iPad is a member of the iPads All group. So if I want to just say, you know what, I want every iPad in my school that's on AirWatch to have this particular app, rather than messing around with the groups, I can just say this app goes to the iPads All group. Maybe it'll save you guys some time. As per earlier, somebody asked whether they can be part of multiple groups. I've added the grade 5 one to the library iPads group, and I'm going to also add it to the grade 5 one that I've created here. Again, I switch over to select devices or users, click OK, and I go find my iPad in here. There it is. Click add, and save. So now that 1 iPad is actually both a member of library and grade 5. If there's like a redundant assignment, like let's say I assign the same app to libraries and the same app to grade 5, it's not going to get it twice. It's just going to, it's going to take the whatever rule it has. So if one doesn't have it, one has it, it's going to get it. So I hope that makes sense. So yeah, iPads All group, everyone should have that. You should also have an Android All group, but we won't worry about that for now. But you should have an iPads All group. By default, it contains all your iPads. Sorry, not the assignments. You can see all 3 iPads by default are in there. And I've already created some assignments here. So I have about 12 or so apps and web clips applied to the All group. So now that we've had them grouped, this is perfect. We have a starting point. This is great. Now we're going to actually go and push these apps to that group. So we're going to switch over to apps and books on the left-hand side. And by default, this is the screen that we see. Whenever you get to apps and books, the first thing you're going to do is in the top right-hand corner here where it says search list, we are either going to type in our school name or we're going to type in the school's 4-digit trillium number if you know what that is. So for me, if I don't type this in, what I see here on this list is I can scroll down here and it just shows a bunch of unknowns. Somebody asked, is it possible to update the iOS of all the iPads group? Not the iOS version. That actually is done in list view. I don't know if you saw earlier. I don't want to sidetrack right now just because that's sort of, I have to go back to this screen. I want to stay here while I go through it. But I can show you that later. But you can't do it based on the groups. You do the iOS update when you're in list view. Actually, let me open up a new tab so I can quickly show that. So if I'm in devices and list view over here, let's say all 3 of these had an iOS update. Right now they don't. Mine is sort of maxed out at 10.33. But if I wanted to update it, I would have to check it off like this. And then more actions and then iOS update, right? that I see the benefit as to why you'd want to do it based on groups, because then I could say, you know, all iPads that are part of this group, I can update it. What you can do, though, is you can actually filter based on the group here. So, for example, let's say I created a group. I'm just going to quickly jump through this because I like that question. It's really good. Let's say I had a group here, and I'll call it iOS 10.3.3 iPads. I could then create my group here that has the platform operating system of Apple iOS is equals, and then I could do 10.3.3. 10.10.10.3.3.3. Boom. So you can see that with that criteria, I have 3 iPads here that are all on 10.3.3, and I can click Save. And now let's say tomorrow Apple comes up with an update that I can do for iPads that are in 10.3.3. What I can do is I can go into my devices list over here, go into list view, and I can filter based on the smart groups. So I can actually go to the filter and check off all the iPads that are part of the iOS 10.3.3. There it is. And what that'll do is it'll filter down my list that all have iOS 10.3.3, and then I could then from here do the iOS update. I hope that makes sense. Sorry, a little bit of sidetrack there. The limitation of 9. So yeah, one thing to note is that there's basically like 3 pillars of updates. Most of the older iPads can go about as high as 9.3.5. Some other ones can go as high as 10.3.3, such as the model that I have here. And then their newer iPads can go up to the latest version, which I think right now is like 11.1.2 or something to that effect. So you might find that some of your iPads are at 9.3.5 and cannot go higher. That's totally fine. I do encourage that everyone have their iOS up to the latest possible for your hardware, because you might run into some problems with different apps not deploying, or some of them don't behave well with AirWatch. So for example, if you have an iPad in your environment that is running less than 9.3.5, like 8, like iOS version 8 or somewhere between there, those usually don't cooperate well with AirWatch. So that's one thing to check out if you're deploying an app and it doesn't show. I'm going to jump back to the applications here. How do I get guided access to work on AirWatch blocked? I'm going to have to take that away because I think in its default locked mode, guided access is still able to turn on. Let's see here. Guided access? Yeah, you can see. Yeah. I'll have to ask. I'll take that away. How do you get guided access to work? Because by default it's not disabled. So they may be able to disable it. So I don't want to. Yeah. Anyways, getting back to what I was doing. Sorry, my apologies. We got very sidetracked, but those are some good questions. On the left-hand side, now that I have, as you may recall, I was in groups and I had all my iPads grouped here into my lovely groups. When I switch over to apps and books, what I do is I always search my school name or my school trillion number in the top right-hand corner. So for example, this fake school that I have here is called Maple Grove. I can search for Maple Grove and hit enter. And what it'll do is it'll filter down that giant list of apps, which basically contain just about everything across the TDSB, to just the ones that apply to me, because I can't work with any of those apps that don't apply to me. If I try, you'll see that you can't even click them. They're unresponsive. Like if I take this out and you come in here and you see just a bunch of unknowns like this, I can't, even if this was an actual app, I can't click it. I can't do anything with this app. There's nothing available to me. So this may be applied either for testing purposes or maybe another school. Don't search the app name either, because sometimes you can get an app that comes up that's not yours. So for example, let me see if Epic. No, that's a bad example. Should have thought of the example ahead of time. I think the Google Drive. Here, we'll try that. Google. So if I'm searching the app name instead of my school, what's going to happen is I might see this. So I have Google Drive. One of these is actually mine that I can work with. This one here. So that's good. I ended up getting what I wanted, but one of them also I can't touch at all, and it's this one. I can't click it. I can't interact with it in any way. So that's why we say, just in the top right-hand corner, search for your school name or trillium number. Again, mine's Maple Grove, or my school trillium number is 9999, which is obviously fake, but yeah. So once I've searched for apps that apply to my school, we can now start deploying all these different apps here. How do these apps get here? These all are gotten here. Get gotten here. Have gotten there. Go get in there. They got there. They got there by the app request form, and the app request form is located on serviceit.tsb.on.ca/mdm. That's our everything AirWatch page. There is a link to the app request form here, and here's the app request form. And basically, what you do is to get the apps don't just magically appear in AirWatch, and how they get there so that you can use AirWatch to manage them is you have to submit this app request form. The idea behind this is that even though our the apps are free, we do need to be held accountable for how much we use, even of a free app, in the event of auditing or anything of that sort. So that's why we have to go through this process right now. And basically, you fill out this form with your first name, last name, employee number, your role, if you're school or central, is this app free? You can do let's say if I wanted a bunch of free apps, you can come in here, you would say yes, we're using AirWatch. There's a link to the app request form in the link description at the bottom of this YouTube video, so you can get to it from there as well. And how it would work is, let's say I had a bunch of apps that I wanted, I don't know, Seesaw, and I can basically keep going with this form. I can add as many apps as I would like. In fact, we would encourage that when you're submitting the app request form, you maybe send out a survey to all your colleagues and say, hey, I'm loading up AirWatch with some apps that we can use. What apps do you guys want to see on your iPads? Get those responses in, and then submit this form with all your app requests in here. It does ask for the VPP URL. I won't go into how to get that, but this is all described here on this page. For the app request form. It just basically tells you to go get the link for that. So that's how those apps actually got into AirWatch. So at one point I submitted this form here, and I asked for all these apps, and then they appeared. So now I'm able to work with them. So let's say I want to deploy an app. I'm going to show you one bad example, but I'm gonna show you how to deploy an app, but I'm not gonna go all the way through it because I want to show you something. When I go to deploy an app, first thing I do is I actually click the app name. In this case, let's say I want to deploy Epic. I'm not gonna deploy Epic, but I'll show you why I'm clicking it. Whenever you first get a new app in AirWatch, and you click the app name and I'm ready to deploy it, you may see this big blue button here that says Enable Device Assignment. That always needs to be pressed. You only have to press it once, and you'll never have to press it again. I'm hoping in the future, as part of our app request process, somebody pushes that button for you so we don't get unnecessary calls regarding one blue button not being pushed. But basically, this blue button tells this app that it doesn't need an Apple ID in order to be pushed out with AirWatch. If you don't push this blue button, you get some weird errors and apps don't deploy. I'm not going to push it because I need this for an example, as future videos will go. But that is just one thing I want to say. But basically, when you press it, it'll ask you, are you sure you want to enable it? You click OK, and you're good to go. And then I'm going to switch out of this, and I'm going to go down to an app that I haven't deployed yet. Do Wonder for Dash and Dots. I'm actually going to push the button on this one because I'll keep that. So I'm going to click OK. Now that I've pushed that blue button, it's never going to show again. I'll never have to deal with that blue button ever again, and this app is now available to work with. One thing I want to point out here as well is do not put anything on the license on hold. Some people, they watch the webinar and then forgot it. Totally understandable. It's a lot to take in. But I've seen people come in here, they've actually thought that this is where they do the license assignment. Don't put anything here. If I put a license on hold, what it does is, even though this app is free, I have 500 licenses to work with, which means I can push out this app to 500 devices. Obviously, I don't have 500 devices, but the idea is that we still need to be accountable even for our free licenses. So this one has 500 licenses. If I put a value in here, I'm going to put in 10. What will happen is it'll take from that pool those 10 licenses, and put them on hold, which means I cannot use those 10 licenses until I take them out. Why this exists, I have no idea. But you can see now I have unallocated 490 licenses. I'll leave it like that just for the sake of demonstration. But do not put any licenses on hold unless you have a need for it. I'm going to click Save and Assign. So now I'm actually ready to create my assignment rules, and this is how I will then take this app and push it to the different iPads across my environment. I'm going to do Add Assignment right here, and this is the screen where most of the stuff happens. In the top left-hand corner, you can see I have 500 licenses. I did put 10 on hold. No for that, but nonetheless, because there's only 10 that are on hold, it's not a big deal. But let's say if I put 500 on hold, I would have no licenses to work with here. But I have 490 left over, even with those 10 I put on hold. I shouldn't have put on hold, but nonetheless, I have 490 left over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create I'm going to add, put my mouse over Add Assignment By, and then License Code by Smart Group. And what will appear is this little text box here. And now I can choose my Smart Group. So earlier I created, all those smart groups, and you can see them, they appear in this list. So let's say I want Wonder for Dash and Dots to go on my library iPads. That's the group that I created here. So I'm going to choose library iPads, and it shows here that there's only one device in here. If I had more devices in there, it would show me that there was 10 if there was 10 devices that are part of that group. That value is telling you that in this group there is one device in that group. And now I need to choose I need to allocate licenses to this group. So I have 490 to play with here because I put 10 on hold. So I have 490 to play with. I need to put equal to or greater than value of the amount of license there. So for example, I cannot leave this as 0 because I have no licenses to give one device, right? So I need to at least put in 1. But what I recommend is when you're allocating licenses is you accommodate for future growth. So my library iPads group may have only 1 right now, but maybe I have 20 more devices coming in the next week. And maybe in 3 years from now, maybe I'll get another 25. So I have 500 to work with. I don't ever see myself exceeding 500. So what I usually like to do is I just shoot for the moon as long as I have the license available. So one device, why not? 50. I'm going to put 50 allocated licenses for that one device. So later on down the road, I get 10 more iPads, and I want to put them in the library group. I don't have to come back in here and touch any of this license allocation value. I've already accommodated for that. I hope that makes sense. It'll make more sense as we go along. But so now I have my library iPads. There's one iPad in there. I've given it 50 licenses, so if I get 49 more iPads, I can put them in this group and not have to touch this allocated value ever again. One thing I want to talk about here is the deployment type. It's going to by default be auto. What that means is auto will automatically push this app over to the iPad as soon as I click save. I should say it's going to attempt to automatically put it to the iPad the second I click save. Depending on the network, if you have a slow network at your school, or perhaps it's at a peak time during the day, or maybe your iPad has just fallen asleep inside of your cart, then it may not get it right away. So one thing to be cognizant of. But the idea is that auto is going to try the next moment the iPad comes online, says hi to AirWatch, it should try to get that app. I'm going to click save, and for the sake of example, it's just going to give me one more. By the way, this is what you got here. Are you ready to go? Sure. I'm going to click save and publish. And it's going to show me what are the iPads that are going to get it. That's the one that I have in there, grade 5 dash iPad number 9. Cool beans. Click publish. Boom. So now that iPad that was in that library iPad group, it's over here to the left of me. I'm going to just check whether it got it. Sometimes it doesn't happen right away, but let me just toggle. Ooh, where's my mouse? There we go. So right now it hasn't got it right away. This usually happens on the webinars where I try to deploy an app. I don't see Wonder for Dash and Dots. Sometimes some things that help actually to get that app to deploy is just waking it up by maybe going to your web browser and going to any web page, making sure, okay, so it's online. I know that much. So if it's online and it's connected, it should get it eventually. What's that? Yeah, and also there's the catalog here. The catalog will tell you all the apps that it should have. In this case, you can see Wonder for Dash and Dots is in the catalog. I shouldn't have to push that install button because I chose automatic as my deployment method. So just to keep true to my word about saying that it will deploy automatically, I'm not going to press that just to see if that eventually makes its way down. But that is one thing I just wanted to share with you, is that, you know, even though I've deployed it, it may take a little bit to get that app. So I'll watch it for now, and if I see it deploy, I'll toggle back to it. So that was the deploying of an app, and that was in the mode of auto. Much alike auto, you can also deploy an app as on demand. And how on demand works is, let me show you Seesaw. So I'm going to push Seesaw. Oh, it's got that enabled device assignment. I'm going to leave that one just because I like the examples of having that. Maybe Google Translate. Have I managed this already? So I'm going to do save and assign. Okay, so I haven't used Google Translate yet. So let's say I want Google Translate on my iPads, and let's say, oh, real quick, I'm just going to switch over. Boom. See that? Wonderful dash and dots made its way over. So you can see how some of these things take time. It's loading, it's downloading, it's pushing its way through. You know, don't freak out if you push out an app and it doesn't happen right away. Like I said, sometimes it just needs to chill. Just like when you know, you're deploying software to like your Windows-based computers, it sometimes takes a while to get down to the computer, because everything's, you know, kind of managed over our network, which can be flaky at times. So, but eventually it should make its way down. So that's Wonderful dash and dots pushing right now. Going back to here, what I did is I went into Google Translate, and I guess the thing I'm trying to make apparent here, did my screen resize? Hold up. Does that fit well? Oh, sorry guys. I think I pushed something. Anyways, okay. So back where I was saying. So Google Translate. So say I want Google Translate to be pushed to the not pushed to the iPads, but I want iPads to have the option of having Google Translate. So what I can do is I can select Google Translate. I'm going to go to Save and Assign. I'm going to create an assignment rule, but instead of leaving the default of auto this time around, I'm going to put it as on demand. So I'm going to do add assignment by license code by smart group. Click in here, and instead of doing that one group that I created, the library iPads, I'm going to show you that iPads all group. So this iPads all group contains all 3 of my iPads in my environment. I need to give this at least 3. Again, 3 or more. You can accommodate for growth. I'm going to do 50. Why not? But instead of auto, I'm going to choose on demand. And what I'll show you is that when I click save and publish, and then once again publish, if I switch back over to my iPad, this one is not going to attempt to force push it. So it's not going to automatically just suddenly appear on my iPad. What it's going to do is it makes it available in the catalog. So now Google Translate, you can see it's right there. So I didn't force it to the iPads, but I've made it an optional app. So all my iPads should now have Google Translate in their catalog. And if I, as a teacher, now want Google Translate, I can just push that install button. And what should happen is you basically queued up the install. But even though, much alike, you know, the Wonder for Dash and Dots, even though it's sort of, I'm doing a manual approach where I'm downloading it from the catalog, it still is very based on the network. So what I do is I queue up the command for the install, and it may take some time for that to push over. So there it goes. You can see that Google Translate is installing. So I didn't force it there, but I gave the person who has the iPad in their hand the option to push it out by using on demand. And so that's pushing out the app. So those are your 2 options. You can do automatic, you can do on demand. You can deploy it to, you know, maybe 1 or 2 groups so that only one iPad gets it. You can deploy it to the iPads all groups so that all your iPads get it. Maybe you find that easier. So what you can do is you can just say, you know what, maybe, you know, I only have these apps here. You know, let's say I'm only grade 7 and 8 school. All these apps apply to all grades, so, you know, you could save yourself some time and just say, I want all these apps to go to all my iPads, and then you should be done with it. Another feature, just while I'm on here, is the ability to auto-update apps. So right now, you can see this auto-update column. There's a green check mark. That means I've turned on auto-updates for that app. I can do that by checking off the app that I want and then going to enable auto updates. And what that means is that any iPad that has that app, when an update becomes available, it's going to automatically push out that app, or sorry, the update to all the iPads that it applies to. Anything else to show here? I think that's it. So that was adding an app, and how we can remove an app, and we can work backwards here, is we can actually go in and remove our assignments. So say for example, Wonder for Dash and Dots. I'm going to undo what I did by going back into here, going to save and assign, and this is the assignment rule that I created that says all my library iPads are going to get it. I can actually, if I select my assignment rule and delete it, it's going to ask me, are you sure? I'm going to hit yes, save and publish, save and publish, publish, and now what I've done is I've undid all that. So that should actually remove the app from all the iPads that were originally in that assignment. So let's see. Maybe the remove is faster. Oh yeah, much faster. So Wonder for Dash and Dots is already gone. So by removing my assignment rule, I've undid my thing, which basically means take it off those iPads. You can also remove apps on an individual basis. So say for example, I can go into my Google Translate here, and I can go to save and assign, and I can click that, and I can actually no, sorry, that's not what I want to do. I'm gonna hit cancel. Sorry, ignore everything I just said. So let's say I want to see all the iPads that have Google Translate applied to it. Rather than clicking the name, I can click the check mark next to it and go to Manage Devices. And what this is going to do, it's going to show me which iPads got it. In this case, one of them is pending install. This is the one that it was supposed to go to, or the one that I installed it on. It doesn't know that it's installed because if we switch back to my iPad, we can see that Google Translate is installed. So it just looks like it hasn't refreshed on this end here, because that grade 5 iPad, that grade 5 iPad here is the one that I was doing it on. So what I can do is I can check that off and go to remove, and remove from the selected device. I'm going to click OK. So that should show removed, and then what will happen is on oh sorry, it's saying pending removal. And if I go back to my iPad, Google Translate is now gone. You can see that it's disappeared. So if there was a bunch in there and I only wanted to remove it from a few, that's one way that I could do it. Thank you so much for attending. I know some of you probably have to go right now, so I'm just going to try to buzz through this. But I hope that this is the most important part. I think we've covered that. So everything from here is just basically extra, you know. Adding apps, removing apps, you know, grouping them, enrolling them. One more thing now that you know, if you have to leave now, please by all means do not stick around just for poor old me. But I'm just going to show one more thing, and that is the web clips. So how we do web clips, and what a web clip is basically like a hot link, or sorry, a hyperlink or shortcut to a website. So we do this under apps and books here on the, oh hold on, I just realized I didn't switch back. There we go. Okay, so how we do the web clips is on apps and books here on the left hand side. Native is where we were, and this shows us all our apps. If we toggle over to webs and then web links, we can create a shortcut to a website. So what we do is we click Add Application. You can see actually first that I already have two that are there. I have Virtual Library and Pebble Go. What I'm going to do is I can create a new one by clicking Add Application. I'm going to choose the platform as Apple iOS. That's for all of our iPads, obviously. Click Continue. We're going to do the name. What's the website? Let's say, I don't know. Google's too obvious. CP24. Let's get the news on our iPads. So I'm going to call this this web clip CP24, and I'm going to link to their website, which is probably www.cp24.com. Actually, let's verify that. cp24.com. Yeah, that worked. So I can take the link up here for CP24, and I can punch that in here. There we go. Yeah, that's right, cp24.com. And maybe I'll take a picture too. So this right here in the top right hand corner, their little logo. I'll save that image. Or at least I'll try. Can I save that image? Oh. Save. Maybe this one. Is that a picture? There we go. I like that picture. The picture doesn't matter. I'm going to show you later why I just stole a picture from their website. The idea here is that when I go back to my web clip, I punched in the link for CP24. I'm going to switch over to the images side here, and this is where I choose the icon. So this is what it's going to look like when it goes onto the screen. I think that's it. That's the file that I got there. Was that it? Image.jpg? Okay. So that's not a very good image, but heck, I'm going to roll with it. So this is the image that's going to show up on my iPad. So it's going to be like the icon. You probably want to choose a better icon than what I just did. It's a very wide bar, but the concept is more important. So I've added the image there. And just like an app, I'm going to assign this web clip to a group. So I can say I want this one by putting my cursor in here and finding my iPads all group right here. So that's my iPads all group, and I can do push mode. I'm going to make it auto, so I'm going to force it on all my iPads. Remember, on demand puts it in the catalog, auto forces it to the iPads. And I'm going to look at some advanced options down here. There's some stuff over here, such as whether or not it's removable. Do I want users to be able to remove this link? I'm going to leave as yes. I imagine not everyone's going to want CP24, so I'm going to let the users have the ability to remove my web clip. And I'm going to make it so that when they open it, it doesn't go in full screen. It just loads up in the browser. And with that, if I hit save and publish, now I have my lovely new CP24 web clip here. And what I should see now when I toggle back to my iPad, where's my mouse? There it is. Okay, if I toggle back to my iPad here, sorry about the white balance, it takes a while, but there it is. So obviously a horrible link that I've chosen there. But the idea is that I have forced this to all my iPads. It made it there right away. I can tap that, and what it'll do is it'll take me right to the cp24.com website. So I basically made like a bookmark on the iPad. And as I also showed you, oh look, it even changed the bookmark. That's interesting. Maybe it knew that my image was silly and just swapped it out. That's cool. Okay, so and I also chose the option to make it removable, and what that means is if I tap and hold it, oh, maybe not. I don't know what removable does. I could have swore it gives you the ability to exit out. I think because obviously we're in student mode, it doesn't give me the ability to remove it out. But I'm pretty sure if I signed into the agent app as I showed you at the beginning, if I signed in here, I can basically remove whatever I want. It unlocks all the features of the iPad. So that was adding a web clip, and again, just like adding an app, if I want to remove a web clip, you just work backwards. So you can come back in here and take it off the. You can just remove it entirely, and that should remove it from all the iPads. So that is the gist of AirWatch. I don't want to take up any more of your time. I think you guys got the most important points. As you play around with AirWatch, you're going to notice some cool little features, so feel free to tinker. If you have any questions, obviously we're here at the client service desk. But I think for the most part, unless you guys have any further questions, I'd be happy to elaborate on that right now. I'm going to wrap this webinar up just to be cognizant of your time. But if you have any questions, of course, you can go to serviceit.tdsb.on.ca/mdm. That is the Everything AirWatch page. Or feel free to contact us. We're 416-395-4357, option 5. And we're open from 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Friday, so feel free to call us there. If anyone has any questions, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to mull it over. And I'll be happy to go into more detail with some questions. So let me know. The Turtle Diary app does not launch, and why? I wish I could say I was aware of the Turtle Diary app. So Turtle Diary. Let me just see. Let's look it up in the App Store. Obviously, again, I don't have my App Store available, so I'm going to go into the Agent app, and I'm going to sign in with my employee number and password. 163-809. I'm gonna actually show you. I'm gonna show you something, Judith. On if you ever have a problem with an app, this usually fixes a lot of the issues here. First, I'm obviously going to just log into the AirWatch agent so that I can unlock all my features. So that worked. So now that I've signed in, the App Store is available. So I'm going to look up your Turtle Diary app here. Keep in mind, I've never played with it. I'm not the developer of it. I can't speak to what it does, how it works, and why it would crash on an iPad or not open up on an iPad. But if I look up Turtle Diary, of course, it would help if I knew how to spell. I'm going to assume it's this guy, Turtle Diary. I can actually look at the information of the app in here. Some things I like to look at whenever I hear that an iPad is having a problem working is I look at the compatibility. So I don't know if you can read that, but it shows requires iOS 8.1. So if you have an iPad that's less than that, that might be why. But I think a more important thing as to you know what, let's install it. Why not? I'm going to download it using my Apple ID. So just bear with me 1 second here. It would help if I knew my Apple ID password. Require after 50 minutes. If there's anyone still there, please feel free to keep firing off questions in the chat while we wait. Looks like it's downloading this app. Judith, does this look like the Turtle Diary app that you're using? Like, is the icon the same? I don't know if you're still there or not, but how many people are showing it? Does it show? No, it's not there. Weird. 7. Oh, 7. Okay. Feel free to ask as many questions as you guys like. I got the time. I'll show you if you have any questions. What's going on? We can even take a look at your environment. You can delve into your iPads and see what your environment looks like. Maybe you have a question about your environment. Maybe you set something up wrong and you want some information on it. I can dive in and take a look at that. 9 people are watching. More people are coming in. That's strange. It's over. So yes, I imagine, yeah, again, the delay. So I imagine that this is the app that you're using. So I'm just downloading it now. I'm hoping it'll work. I imagine it will. So now it's downloaded. See here, there's Turtle Diary. Safari says cannot open. It says Safari cannot open. But Safari, Turtle Diary would like to send you notifications. Allow. Are you talking about, is Turtle Diary a website or an app? Because I downloaded the Turtle Diary app. So this isn't a website. Like a web clip will. There's probably a website for Turtle Diary. Turtle Diary. Oh yeah, there's a website there. So Safari says cannot open. What school is Judith at?
Judith is at 7th Street.
7th Street. So let's go take a look at 7th Street. And we're gonna go look at the maybe they created a web clip for it. Oh, do we have the ability to even look at their web clips? I guess not. It's an app and a website, but the app will not open. Okay, so I see you have the Turtle Diary app. You have it on 54 different devices. Okay, one thing I want to show you about, so if it's not, so like Turtle Diary also has like a website, as you're aware, right? So when you say Safari will not open, what that sounds like to me is that Safari is right here. It's the browser. So if Safari is saying that it cannot open, then you know, that might be that you have a bad link. But if it's the app that's not opening, like if I launch Turtle Diary and it's not opening, one thing I want to show you is I'm going to launch a bunch of apps here, and then I'm going to tap the home button. And the reason I'm doing this and I'm launching all these apps is this is an important concept I think a lot of people get missed on with the iPads, is that when I launch an app and then press the home button and it disappears, the app is actually still running. It's still running in the background. The memory is still being utilized on the iPad. So how do we actually close an app? And this usually fixes a lot of problems with different apps. Is if we double tap the home button. Oops, you gotta tap it faster. So I'm gonna tap like really quick. So 1, 2, 1, 2. There we go. This is what I want to see. If I double tap the home button, what happens is it shows me all my open apps. So as you can see, these are all the ones that I just started launching and are still running in the background. I can switch to any of these apps. If you're having a problem with an app that just keeps not misbehaving, what I find really helps is swiping up the app. So what this does is when I take this app and I swipe it up towards the ceiling, this is actually closing it. So that's closed. Google Drive is now closed. It's cleared from memory. It's not running anymore. But as long as they're in here and I double tap and I see it, the app is still running. So what I would recommend is double tap your home button, see how many open apps you have running. You'll probably be shocked that how many are actually running if you've never done this before. But then you're going to swipe up each one like this. And on the later versions of iOS 11, it looks a little bit different, but the concept is still the same, where you double tap the home button and then it kind of cascades into like 4 little windows. I unfortunately don't have the latest version, but the idea is still the same. You'll see all of your open apps. Now that I'm left with just this, all my open apps are closed. So this is all I got left. So there's no open apps. And then when I press the home button, I return back to normal. And if I double tap again, still nothing. So I've closed every app. Now it's officially closed. Now I should be able to go back into Turtle Diary, launch it, and maybe perhaps see if that has any effect. Maybe give that a try and see if that helps. I don't understand how the Safari cannot open thing. That's maybe the login. When you go to login, you know what, Jude? I'd actually recommend with that particular issue that you give us a call at the client service desk so we can see it better from your end, because we would have to reproduce that to see why that's happening. Of course, with AirWatch, like if you really are pulling your hair out and you cannot figure out, we have everything closed, the app is still frozen. I mean, do you have the serial number? Do you know which iPad it is? So I see you have 58 devices here, and maybe if you can, so you see how all yours are named, oops, sorry. There we go. So I'm looking at your environment here. All yours are named iPad, so I can't really track it down. So I would need the serial number to figure out which one it is. So this app is having a problem on all your iPads. I mean, if it were happening on iPads that are running like a not so good version, like you got some here that are 10.32, 10.33. So here's one that's running 8.1. This one might give you some problems. I can't really speak too much as to why an app wouldn't work because I've never used it, and I'm not sure what the purpose of Turtle is, or I don't have an account. I don't know where it's freezing. Is it freezing at the moment that you open it? I don't know. I'm not too sure. We'd have to get back to you on that. Yeah. So if anyone has any other questions, because, you know, it's not, I got nothing for you right now without getting more information from you. We'll call a person in because I guess we're going to roll this, yeah. Judith, I don't want you to misunderstand anything here, but you are indeed enrolled in AirWatch. So this right here, I'm looking at 7th Street. Oh, yeah, what? Oh, no, you're going to see it eventually. I'm looking at 7th Street right now. So this is actually your school, and you guys already enrolled. You have 58 devices, and yeah, somebody has already pushed Turtle Diary over to all your iPads, or at least to 54 of them. So if I look down, these are all your apps here, Judith, and there's Turtle Diary. Maybe turn on auto updates. Maybe because this is showing that auto updates aren't enabled. So maybe toggle this, and I can't do it from my end here, but you can do it from your end. Toggle that app and turn on the auto updates. I showed that earlier, but that would probably help, because this is showing 2.8 is the latest version. Maybe the version that you have on your iPads isn't quite 2.8. So if I switch over and pick up one of your iPads at random, maybe it'll tell me what version it's on there. So let's see. Here's an iPad. Let's go to apps. Let's go take a look at Turtle Diary. Turtle Diary is showing version 16. What? Oh, I guess that would be 1.6. So yeah, maybe your Turtle Diary is out of date. I don't know. I don't know, Judith. I need the serial numbers. I need to do this over a phone call directly with you, because I don't think this is the best way of doing it as far as on the web chat. So I'll tell you what. I'll send you a ping after we're done here. I imagine we're done here now, unless anyone has any other questions. Give you 2 more minutes. If I don't see anything in the chat, then I will just shut this down. And if you're already left or are leaving, thank you very much for attending. I appreciate it. Hopefully you learned something new today. And yeah, feel free to contact us at the client service desk if you have any further questions. All right, right on, right on. I see there is no more chatter going on in the chat. Feeling awfully lonely now, so I'm just going to wrap this guy up. Thank you all very much for attending the webinar here with me this morning / afternoon. Again, we may be getting a feedback form. We appreciate the feedback on how we're doing here. If you'd like to see maybe some other webinars, I don't know. We kind of like doing this. It's fun. So feel free to let us know what you think. And again, thank you for attending, and happy app deployment. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.